I've seen some really like consternation about this, but it seems like you're getting now CJ Jones back in the role that he originally probably should have been in all along. So I don't really have any
And
difficulty.
cheaper
Yeah,
too, because
yeah,
he left and came back. It's going to be cheaper.
yeah. You basically got him on your terms.
Welcome into another edition of Three Ma. John Kurtz, Derek Young with you. No Cole Manbeck today, but that's all right. You know, somebody, I believe it was Hank on social media, recently ranked favorite K-State podcast hosts, and Cole was third out of the three. So, I mean, I'm not saying we voted him off the island, but we're just trying to please the people. Okay, DY and I were 1-2 on that list. We were the top two, so we're here to still do the show. Not You feeling any pressure with that, DY? Now that Cole's not here and we got voted number one and number two?
No, I thought that would be you since you're at the top. So you gotta live up to the expectations because you were number one overall just through the entire thing.
Well, I mean, come on. DY, I was trying to be humble. We didn't need to tell the people that. They all assumed, I'm sure, as they heard this.
You went part-time on Kansas State and kind of rose to the top. I guess that was a good choice by you.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Sometimes careers work out like that. You never know.
Everything's better in small doses.
Yeah, to celebrate the fact that I am number one, you could raise a glass of Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon. It is brought to you by our friends at Holiday Distillery. You can go find it basically anywhere. Okay, no matter where you are listening to this, from sea to shining sea. It sounds like Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon is most of the way across the country. But if you don't see it in your area, just let them know. Let them know that they need to contact Holiday Distillery and get that going. You can also grab 360 vodka, whatever it is that you're doing the rest of the summer. If you're hanging out at the lake, hanging out on a porch, gearing up for football season. I mean, we are literally a month and a day away from K-State football, from K-State in Ireland taking on Iowa State. So thank you to the good folks at Holiday Distillery. I guess on that front, this is a tough transition. We're going to talk about CJ Jones coming back to the basketball team plenty here on this show as well, because that is the other news that has happened this week, and that one's little complex. There's a lot to unpack there for sure. But unfortunately, we do start with some bad news, some sad news. Statement released by K-State about offensive lineman George Fitzpatrick. So for those who need a refresher, I know it's a new name, but this was definitely crown jewel, basically, of the transfer class. K-State really needed an offensive tackle, and they got one from Ohio State. Will Howard helped out with the recruitment there. And George Fitzpatrick, when we were down in Frisco for Big 12 Media Days, was some of the talk there. I mean, Chris Kleiman basically said as much, that he was K-State's best offensive lineman. It sounded like things were going very, very well. Statement released by K-State this week says, quote, George had a medical situation to which the training staff quickly responded. He is improving every day, and we appreciate all who have cared for and supported him as he continues to recover. The other thing that had happened was earlier in the week, a former Ohio State teammate of his, I believe that was a teammate, right, DY?
I assume so.
Okay. I think that was the assumption. An Ohio State account, at least, had tweeted basically like, hey, everybody needs to be praying for a former Buckeye in George Fitzpatrick. That was kind of how I think it first got on many people's radars publicly. This is a tricky situation. I don't know that there's a lot that we can add necessarily to that statement right now, but DY, you are certainly more informed than I guess I'll leave it to your reaction to this and what you think we're able to really say at this point in time.
Yeah, I think it occurred last Wednesday. The medical what do they call it? Medical situation that did occur. And that, by the way, and that message, that statement from K-State was also from the Fitzpatrick family. It was almost like a joint statement, and then that was sent to me yesterday, Monday, July 21st, and I think it's intentionally vague. So even if I do think I have a idea of some other details, I think it would be maybe inappropriate or irresponsible to share those. Because I think the Fitzpatrick family in Kansas State intentionally left some of those out because I think they would enjoy some privacy at this time as they kind of navigate through that. But I would say, just for George Fitzpatrick, it's good that they say he is improving every day. And I think just to hope for a speedy recovery for him is probably the best way to go about it right now. And outside of that, there's probably not a lot to kind of take in other than, if we're being realist, this is probably happening a little too close to the season to think that he's going to be maybe in a spot where he's on the field in Ireland, right? I think that's maybe fair to state. Beyond that, we'll see how it goes. But I would just say, like, his availability to begin the season is probably now in question.
I mean, I think very, very much so. I think that's not even really probably the concern right now.
Absolutely.
So, I know with fans, that's always a tough part of this discussion, which is why we kind of say, like, yeah, I mean, the move right now is just obviously just hope and pray that things go well with him health-wise overall. And if you're thinking football fan season, what's it going to mean? I think that's what we can tell you. Like, I would not anticipate him being available at the beginning of the season. Beyond that, who knows? We'll see. But it's a tough situation, man. And I know it's frustrating when we're vague, but like, this is one of those, like, they'll tell you when they feel like it or the time is right if that's going to come out. So
it at least sounds like, from what we have learned behind the scenes and what they released in the statement last night, that he is on the road to recovery. So that is the optimistic view of things at this point.
Yeah. It was tense for a little while there, wondering what exactly was going on. So, yeah, it feels a little flippant almost, I guess, to have like the football conversation with it. I don't know, DY, how much do you want to get into that? Because I know I've already seen, some of the fan reaction to this. It's like, man, what do we do at tackle? Because it was definitely an area of concern. I think there's a lot of talent at tackle on the rest of the roster, but it's young and or injury prone. And so that's where George Fitzpatrick obviously was a huge part of what they had added.
And his ascent, or at least rise to becoming maybe the anchor of the offensive line, is kind of what allowed everything to kind of fit into place and us to feel comfortable about where the offensive line was going to be. And I'm not saying it can't be that way, but now it's a little bit trickier to navigate. And yeah, maybe it's a little bit flippant as Fitzpatrick makes that recovery, but it's still part of the gig that we have to do too. So it's probably a discussion, maybe a few minutes worth having, like who plays tackle until Fitzpatrick can recover and return to that role. And I would say this is where it was, you hoped you didn't have to go this way, right? But this is where Kansas State adding JB Nelson and Terrence Enos from Pitt in April or May or whenever it was right after spring ball was probably a huge decision, and one that's going to help them out quite a bit. Both of those guys can play tackle. They're kind of swing guys where they can play on the the interior and a tackle. And then another guy that Chris Kleiman mentioned in Frisco at the Star for Big 12 Media Days is someone that's perhaps had a good offseason and is also now healthy, is John Pastore. So those are three names that will probably have to be relied upon a little bit more than anticipated, perhaps, with this now unfolding. And anything else that could happen, you also have the liberty and the luxury of Andrew Langang, who can play just like Enos and Nelson can play tackle and guard.
And then, so yeah, it's like a bunch of swing tackles. Now, JB Nelson is really talented, like a really good offensive line. That's an NFL offensive lineman, perhaps a little bit out of position at tackle. But here was when I was trying to calm down the Discord a little bit yesterday, patreon.com/3ma, by the way, if you'd like to join there. I was like, look, JB Nelson kind of reminds me of what the Chiefs did with Joe Thuney out of tackle, right? And when they weren't going up against the best defensive line in football, that worked out pretty well. Like, he's pretty good, and I have no idea. Look, I don't know offensive line play well enough to know how similar of a comp that really is. But just in terms of sort of being guys that might be more natural inside, that are very, very talented, that might have the ability to do something like that, it kind of reminded me of that sort of situation. So, I don't. Chiefs did pretty well with that until, again, they ran up against an offensive line of world beaters. Texas Tech is probably going to be the toughest defensive line that you see all year. You got a ways to go before that game. So
Utah.
Texas Tech's transfers. Texas Tech, I think, is the most talented defensive.
I would just put Utah maybe near the same level, because that's where they're always good at.
Yeah. Well, and then I guess the other tackle that we should mention too is, like, Gus Hawkins is there, who I think we feel like is going to be a really good tackle at some point. The question is whether or not that's now. And it sounded like, I think you can just judge by their actions with how they've treated and gone out and got some extra insurance that could play tackle. That the assumption probably is that he's not quite ready for that role right now, but maybe that changes in camp, which starts, by the way, today as we're recording.
Yeah, they report on Tuesday, July 22nd, first practice, July 23rd. Ideally, I think their ideal thought was Gus Hawkins gets his feet wet this year and really becomes a dude in the 26th season. We'll see if this accelerates that timetable at all. But I'll be honest, JB Nelson and Terrence Enos, if you're going to play those guys at tackle, they're probably more fit and safe and secure to play at right tackle rather than the left side. John Pastore can play some left tackle, and it's certainly where he's repped at for a large portion of his career at Kansas State. So for him to stay healthy and be ready, which readiness should not be a factor for him at this point, but the health part has always been in question because he's been banged up quite a bit. If he can stay healthy, John Pastore might become one of the more valuable pieces on this team now because of his ability to play left tackle and perhaps at a high level. And you can move around the chess pieces aside from that all over however you want. You'd rather not have to put someone at left tackle that's maybe not fit to do that. So I wonder if the next option is John Pastore.
I think that's probably accurate. Like, if I were a betting man, I would certainly bet that Pastore is the left tackle when K-State opens up the season in Ireland. But you're right. Like, injuries have been largely the story of his career so far, unfortunately. So that's what gives you that pause. You've got to. So there are the options. Basically, we've outlined the options. I can pass along to you that Cole the other night last week. What did he say? He said he stayed up until like 2 or 3 in the morning, painstakingly looking over the roster online, trying to figure out what K-State was going to do at tackle here. So having done all that, everybody's scrubbing through all that. I think those are your options here right now. So
and at the end of the day, more than anything, it's just hoping for continued recovery for George Fitzpatrick.
Absolutely. And again, sorry that we have to be somewhat vague with that, but I think you all would understand and probably will eventually here with that situation. Okay, so CJ Jones is back on the basketball roster. We'll talk about that coming up next.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network. Emprise Bank has been with us from the beginning. They were our first network partner, and they believed in the vision of what we were building from the start. I can't speak to any other banks or companies and how they operate, but I can tell you from personal experience and based on the growth of the network you're listening to right now, that if you have banking needs, call our friends at Emprise Bank. We've worked with so many great people there over the years, from Vicky and Aggie to Andrea, Lori, Jackie, Deb, and Aaron, and not to mention so many others that not just supported KC Sports Network, but supported our KCSN Foundation as well. But the best thing that I know is that if I have a question or a problem, no matter how dumb the question is, I know who I'm going to call and who I'm going to talk to, and I know that I'm getting an answer from someone that I can trust, and I know that person is there to help us. That's why Emprise Bank has always been and continues to be our partner in Possible, and they can be yours too. You just have to reach out. If you have a banking need, whether it's business or personal, hit me up. I will connect you directly with the same people that have helped us build KCSN. And that's our friends at Emprise Bank.
Folks, there's nothing that beats relaxing on a hot summer day and watching some baseball. And there's no simpler way to get in on the action than by downloading the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It's crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. And the best part, Pick 6 is available right here in Missouri. Don't miss out on the fun. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Here's what you got to do. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code KCSN. That's code KCSN for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Bonus picks expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Okay, from football to hoops, it is not the big that K-State has been looking for. It is not the waiver, or I guess overturning of a denial on a waiver for, why am I blanking on names here? DY Tyreek
Smith.
Tyreek Smith. There we go. Tyreek Smith. It's not that K-State's, I think we've all been like desperately wanting for the basketball roster, but you do have some backcourt help now in CJ Jones, who is returning. And look, to me, there are like two very different pieces of this. I guess three, if we want to still talk about, well, now the roster has added one more, and you still need, clearly, I think, some more help down low, at least to feel good about what you have at the 4 and the 5. But the two pieces that diverge about the CJ Jones news are, okay, CJ Jones in and of himself being a guy who's going to be like a fourth guard is more than fine. I mean, I'm totally okay with that. Like, I think he's fine for that role, maybe more than fine. But what does this mean? If they're doing this, I think it tells you something about David Castillo and where his development is at, and that is definitely disappointing and somewhat alarming here.
Yeah, and it's kind of like just a funny situation too, the way it folded, right? The circumstances now, like
Yes.
CJ Jones was staying, and then he decided to go because of all the guys that they added. He completely is disappeared from all of our minds. Then on July 20th, CJ Jones is coming back to Kansas State. How about that?
Yeah.
And funny how that everything turned out. I've seen some really like consternation about this, but it seems like you're getting now CJ Jones back in the role that he originally probably should have been in all along. So I don't really have any difficulty.
And cheaper too, because he left and came back. It's going to be cheaper.
Yeah, you basically got him on your terms.
Yeah.
Your terms in terms of his role, and your terms in terms of his cost. So it seems like a win-win on that front. And for CJ Jones, I think he was like almost backed into a corner of where he could accept this or maybe play for a lower level that he didn't really desire to return to. So I think those were his options. At one point, he had solid high major options, whether it be DePaul or some others that I forget.
Like USC popped up as being interested there at one point.
Yeah, DePaul, USC, and I think there was two others. But I think the way he kind of dilly-dallied around, he probably just timing-wise lost out on those opportunities and left them with the options they had. And then because he kind of waited as long as he has still to this day. I mean, he was in the portal for like 3 months. Kansas State came back around, and instead we're talking about David Castillo possibly falling down the pecking order, right? So I think this says a lot more about maybe David Castillo or some of the other young guys that they're still trying to get to a certain level rather than it does the Kansas State itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man,
But I guess that does say something about Kansas State if that's the case. But
well, so yeah, I mean, there's two conversations here on Castillo, which is one, just the immediacy of it, like David Castillo. What does it mean for the future of the basketball roster, his spot? Like, this was a guy who was really hyped up. Like, that was a big recruiting win. That was somebody, rightfully so, with the recruiting rankings and playing for Team USA, like all these different things everybody was very excited about. He certainly got hyped up quite a bit when he came in. You know, the coaches gassed him up pretty good. But then there's also the discussion of like, okay, I mean, let's look at the high school recruiting of this program under Jerome Tang. There have not been a lot of success stories with that. And you know, you don't necessarily have to have that to win these days with the transfer portal, I suppose. But that's probably worthy of discussion. Do they need to change the way that they're either evaluating or developing with high school recruits that have come into the program?
Yeah, because they haven't, like you said, they really haven't had a success story out of high school yet, and they're going on their 4th year at Kansas State. It is a conversation worth having. I also don't know that that's necessarily what's limited this program each of the past 2 seasons, although it wouldn't have hurt.
That's kind of the thing. Like, it would be something that we can't look at it and say like, oh, but if you would have had, I don't know who going back,
Day-Day.
or like Day-Day, right? If Day-Day stays around and Day-Day is, and he's probably the closest thing, I guess, to a success story.
Only stayed 1 year, but is now feels like maybe a productive player at the high major level. By the way, he returns to Bramlage this year.
Yeah. I
playing for Cal.
Especially when, and I know that obviously things changed a little bit just based on who decided to leave this offseason, but when there was talk of like the Houston model, you know, I mean, the Houston model is definitely going to be bring guys in, develop them, be effective, efficient, recruiting at the high school level. So now I'm still pretty optimistic that, you know, with like Matt Driscoll in the fold, like some of the changes that have been made this offseason to the coaching staff, that development can get better. I think there's a very good chance that improves. So I'm still pretty high on how they've tweaked the staff and what's going on with the program in general. But right now, I do think this is kind of like a little bit of a flashing alarm of like, hey, like this is an issue right now within the program. Like, the high school recruiting is going to need to get better.
Yeah, and maybe Castillo still finds his way. We'll see.
Yeah.
But
would love to be wrong about that.
Yeah, but just adding CJ Jones back on top of already having PJ Haggerty, Nate Johnson, Abdi Bashir, Andre Kostic. There might be a longer list of guys in front of him now than there was a year ago.
Yeah. I mean, really, I guess it depends on, you know, I don't know. Are you considering Bashir for sure too, or Kostic for sure? You know, I mean, I guess we could maybe debate some of that, but it sure seems like to me, I haven't seen any of these guys play in a K-State uniform yet, right? But it seems to me like there is more talent ahead of him in the backcourt for sure. And then if you're trying to think like, where does David Castillo fit in? I mean, that's part of our point here. Like, listen to all those names that were just rattled off, and then CJ Jones, and you saw the role that he played this past year. Like, where exactly does David Castillo fit in and all that?
Yeah, I mean, because Bashir's probably not going to play the one ever, but Nate Johnson probably can in small amounts. PJ Haggerty will in large amounts. And then you don't expect Kostic or Bashir to play the one. So maybe if it's just Nate Johnson and PJ Haggerty, he's just duking it out with CJ Jones and Xavier Wilson.
Tonight, maybe I shouldn't speculate about this. I feel like it was the Discord DUI. Someone said on the Discord that he was in a boot.
I think there are rumors of that.
Okay.
We're talking about Zay. Yeah.
Yeah, Xavier Wilson, incoming freshman. Speaking of, I mean, maybe he's a guy that can develop. We know that now this is a Bruce thing. The K-State basketball players and foot injuries. Okay. So if this is going to come back around, maybe it is something about, you know, people are like, it's the practice facility, you know, they built it on an Indian burial ground or something, and they're just coming after dudes' feet. Unfortunately, Dean Wade got affected by that a couple of times. I kid there, but that's what I always think of when I think of K-State hoopers in a boot.
Oh, the Dean Wade stuff still hurts me.
It's brutal, man. That's brutal. Would have loved to seen Dean Wade get a legit tournament run at one point in time, but you know, what can you do?
The big situation is still.
I was just gonna say, how does this? Okay, so the other thing about this is that it takes up another scholarship. I get the math confused. You're at 14, but like that's assuming that Tyreek Smith would be on the roster, which right now feels like probably less likely.
It sounds flimsy at best.
Yeah.
I don't think they have a verdict, 100% final decision from the NCAA or whoever's running things now on that front on Tyreek Smith.
Who has the keys to that car? I have no idea.
I don't know who's making the decision on Tyreek, but the confidence level that it comes back as good news seems to be waning with every moment.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting closer and closer. Yeah, it certainly is. It doesn't feel more comforting the further this goes.
I honestly, and I was being like almost, or actually 100% like genuine. I have no idea if the NCAA still does these things. I don't.
I think they do, but it is
the House settlement seemed to take like almost all authority away from the NCAA.
Well, they don't have authority over the adjudicating NIL deals. That's
or rev share. So like 90% of how all of this works.
But but this isn't really related to that. This is like pure eligibility. I do think that's still somebody in Indianapolis, I think, will still be making a ruling on that.
It's the last thing that they are holding on to is they get to deem eligibility. And to their credit, they are now winning those cases more often than not in court, whereas at one point they were not winning anything. So,
yeah, that's why. I mean, remember the assumption at one point was that even Max Jones was going to get to come back because everything was going that way.
Now the NCAA can't lose, so good for them, I guess.
Yeah, at least with those. So yeah, I mean, I guess the point here is the backcourt. Here's a positive, DY. I mean, I think the backcourt is much better than it was last year.
I do too. Better. And I think your best players are not red flags. Last year, I think the best players were red flags.
Yeah. So I feel like that can be a huge strength of this team, but it's like if you can get a solid front court, I think this team would really have a chance. I don't know if they have enough quality depth for that right now.
I don't know either, unless Rapique's really good at the four, which he might be. Unless Moby can give you 10 solid minutes, and he might. But I mean, these are a lot of ifs. And then I think that there is an international big coming that is yet to be announced.
Right.
I don't know how much of a direct impact or amazing he'll be, but I mean, I guess you're getting the bodies that you want, that you're calling for, John.
Boy, well, look. I am reserving judgment much more on the Euro big because I'm just not a guy that's going to sit here in July and grind tape of European basketball players. That's just I don't have the bandwidth for that. The Discord, patreon.com/3ma, many of them have the bandwidth for that. They're quite skeptical of the rumored big here. I will just put it that way, DY. They're quite skeptical.
Hey, a reason to join the Discord.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you want to learn more? You want to grind tape on European basketball in July? Patreon.com/3ma. Get signed up, man. Parker will take care of you. Harambe will take care of you. Cole will definitely be there in the trenches with you. I can't imagine what would be a more enticing, exciting sales pitch. So if you're looking to escape your family, you can do it at patreon.com/3ma by watching second tier. I forget what country it is. We'll just say Serbian, second tier Serbian basketball.
I think it was Italy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, it's not Serbian, but there have been Serbian basketball tape. There has been Serbian basketball tape grinded at some point by people in the Discord.
I think this is second division Italian.
Okay. I was like, I knew it was a second division somewhere. I couldn't remember exactly where. Okay. Yeah. So there's a little breadcrumb for you. Yeah. All right. Anything else on the basketball? I guess right now, you'd be looking at McGriff, Rapique, Moby,
Taj,
and European big. That would be the front court.
Yeah, because Osei, but I think he's expected to redshirt. Yeah,
is that like there are injury issues there, right?
That's my assumption.
Okay. So yeah, well, so the other part of this is you start doing the math on that. It seems like they're going to be at 15 scholarships, which at the beginning of the offseason, it sounded like it was 13. That will cost the school more money to do that. It's so basketball offseason is taking a lot of twists and turns as it typically does.
That's why me and John are adding jobs to our repertoire. We're helping Kansas State pay for their extra scholarships.
Well, look, however we can help and chip in, Wildcat NIL, a Hearn Fund, whatever it is that we can do, we're here to do it here on Three Mod. Maybe someone from K-State from the athletic department wants to grind Euro tape with us. Invitation's always open. All right. Hopefully we'll get Cole back soon.
I just remembered we forgot Marcus Johnson, Bowling Green.
Are we considering him? See, I was considering him like a wing.
Maybe, but he can't guard a wing. So
okay. I just in my mind was like more guard wing for Marcus Johnson. But
yeah, I guess offensively it's probably what he is. Maybe he's a 4. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, they might have to get creative, and the part that sucks about that is it feels like almost an inverse of where they were at last year, where we were sitting here at this time and we were like, well, they've got all these forwards.
Yeah.
Coleman Hawkins will have to play the 3, and we're talking ourselves into that. And now we're like, well, they have a great backcourt. Look at all these guards.
That's probably the makeup you'd rather have in college.
Yes, completely agree with that. So yes, I completely agree with that. I like the situation this year still better than last year. But man, it's just like, dude, if Tyree Smith, NCAA, come on, dog. Like if Tyree Smith would just make such a massive difference, I think, in how you feel about this team.
I agree. McGriff's going to have to be a stud. Yeah.
McGriff will need to. So someone will need to take a big step forward for sure. But again, I feel better about development with Driscoll on staff. So
and Peterson. Yep.
Yeah, Peterson. Yes. Okay. That's going to do it for us. Thank you to our friends at Holiday Distillery. Thank you to Nick Springer behind the scenes. Again, hopefully we'll get Cole back very soon. Number 3 on Hank's list, number 1 in our hearts. Cole Manbeck, we miss you, buddy. Take care. We'll talk to you all soon here on 3 Maw.